Welcome, lovely one, to the Meant for More podcast. My name's Lisa Clifford, and I am building the world's most empowering Meant for More movement, leading millions of heart-led purpose seekers from feeling insignificant to invincible. So I truly hope you enjoy this next episode. And our next guest is Paula Grizzard. She is a consultant, a coach, a mentor, and she specialises now in helping startup businesses get to market and scale. So in this conversation, we reminisce about how we met and the gift that I felt in her in that connection, the moment that we met. We talk about her Meant for More moment, what that was and where did it lead to. We talk about the difference in the way men and women do business and the value of both. And we talk about what holds women back in business and where do they play small, and the kind of businesses that women do have ideas about and set up, and so much more we talk about. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I am getting her back for a second episode, but for now, enjoy. And Paula, you may have many times in your life, and which you can talk about as many as you like, but you know those moments where you just think, I'm meant for more, either more than how I'm showing up or more than what I'm offering, or I've been compromising for too long. Can you share a time in your life when you've had that feeling of, I know I'm meant or made for more?
Definitely, I can. I think there's been a couple of times, but my standout one, I guess, is when I turned 40 and I was working in the public sector at that time, and had a really great job, quite a high-powered job. I travelled to London a lot. I was working with government ministers. It was a great job. And I was sent on the delegation to Hungary. And off I went, and I was with a group of other people who I didn't know, actually, who'd come from various parts of the world, actually, as well as different parts of the UK. There was about 10 of us. We'd been sent out there to work with some businesses and a couple of other organisations and to showcase some of the work that we were doing here in England. And I had a ball, and I came back and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to set up my own business. I'm going to do what I was doing in Hungary for me, and I'm going to build a consultancy practice. And everybody said to me, don't do it. Don't do it. You've got this great job. You know, it's tricky out there in the big wide world, and, you know, it's going to be very hard. Don't do it. And I did do it because I knew that I needed to set my own direction. I needed to reset. I needed a reset, and I needed to set a new direction for me and have some new challenges. And boy, have there been challenges along the way. But that was it, really. I just knew that I needed more than being employed, even in a great job. I needed to have something else.
What was there something else that you got? Because I mean, people are quick, aren't they, to say don't do it, but it's more, I wouldn't do it, or I wouldn't do it. You know, they're projecting onto you, aren't they? Their fears. And I guess people do think having a job is safe, but it's an illusion, I think.
Yes, well, it is, particularly today, because whose job is safe? I'm going back a bit, where there was more safety, particularly if you work for, say, a government organisation or the civil service or whatever. You're absolutely right, though. I think people do project their fears onto you, and you don't always see that, and it's quite debilitating. And
it comes across as care, doesn't it? It comes across
as
care.
It does, but it also comes across as safety. and it also comes across as stay where you are, be static, don't challenge yourself, don't move on. And I think sometimes people, I know it sounds an awful thing to say, but I think sometimes people feel a little bit threatened by somebody who is going to challenge their own norm.
Well, that's
And,
such a good
and
topic,
yeah,
Paula.
yeah, absolutely. And I needed that challenge. And then one thing I did know is that I had quite a lot of resilience. That was my byline. I didn't. I've always liked change. I've always liked starting up new things. And I thought, you know, this is just another one of those things along the way, but it's going to be for me. It's going to be my thing rather than setting up or starting up something new for somebody else.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because so had you had a history of establishing, setting up, creating teams, departments, and then was that your kind of specialism?
It was, although I didn't realise it. It's only looking back that I think, you know, I am not the what's the word for it? Well, I am the startup vision person. I'm not, and never really have been, the detail, pick up the pieces and always do it person. That has a lot of pluses and it has quite a lot of minuses as well. The pluses being you bring the energy and you can persuade people to come alongside in terms of a vision. The hard bit is when you actually have to make it happen, or you don't have the size of the team to make it happen, and you have to do a lot of it yourself.
Which I'm
But
guessing you had to do at the beginning was pretty much.
I did when I had my own business, most definitely, because I'd come from a situation where I had a team. I had people who would do things. You know, I had people who would produce a report. You know, I would write it, somebody else would edit it, and, you know, we'd get a fabulous looking report done. I had to do all those things myself and learn from the beginning. And I learned I wasn't very good at it, but I had to become better at it. Otherwise, I wasn't going to survive. As I built the consultancy up, I was able to bring people in who would do some of that stuff, which allowed me the time to go out and do the business development work, which is the bit that I've always been good at. Yeah, sales and marketing. That's it.
Well, I can absolutely see it because we met at the Athena conference, and you
We
were
did.
I was about to do a presentation in a room, a workshop in a room, and you were in the room, and it was available, and I just sat down next to you, and we could have chatted forever, but you had this gift, Paula, an absolute gift of being
Off the gap.
fascinated. The gap.
Gap.
Oh, but actually, you weren't doing the gabbing. You were being completely curious and fascinated in me. And I sat and chatted about myself to you and left thinking, what a lovely lady. I knew nothing about you. And that is what a great people person does. Not the bit I did, the bit you did, where you can leave somebody feeling brilliant about themselves and where they really like you, having know nothing about you. You had in our conversation was just an ease. There was no what's the word? There was no barriers. It was just accessible. You were just accessible. We were just connecting. There was no defensiveness. There was no proving, protecting. You know, quite often that can come up in a conversation, can't it? But with you, you have this really lovely ease about you that I bet when you are interviewing somebody, that they end up sharing stuff with you that you really get to know all of who they are without asking all of the questions. There's just something really special about the way that you communicate.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. I think it's just down to the fact that I'm actually very curious about people, and in the main, the people I'm most curious about is people who have taken risks, who have done something different, who've gone a different pathway, perhaps from the more considered what is the norm. And so that is something that I'm interested in, because I always think I can learn from. So what makes that person tick? Why have they done that? Is that something that interests me in the sense of, could I do that? Or what can I learn from that? Or what wouldn't I do that they're doing, for sure? But it's born of, I think, just a curiosity. And I'm not very fashionable to say it these days, but I've always been intrigued by people who are successful in their field, not necessarily monetary success, but success in what they do. And I think today there's so much about the happiness quotient, being happy in what you do. And so many businesses that I come across these days are social purpose businesses. More and more people, particularly women, seem to be going into businesses with a strong social purpose. And often that's born of their own circumstances, their own experiences. And I find that fascinating because it's a relatively new phenomenon. Because people used to go into business purely for profit, not exclusively, but in many cases. And today, more and more people are going in, yes, for profit. People have to pay their bills, but to do something different that's going to have a great impact on people.
I completely agree. I hadn't actually seen it that way. You will see it more than me because of the field you're in. Just share how you
Yeah,
work with people
yeah.
today.
So I very briefly built up the consultancy that I mentioned, and it was a successful consultancy. We did a lot of international work, mainly in what were then the emerging economies of Central and Eastern Europe. That was our patch, but we did do a lot of work in the UK as well. But I then decided to downsize the business after 20 years, just over 20 years, and did something that I'd never done before. Started to work with women in business. And that was purely because of a coffee I had with somebody that I had worked with during my consultancy practice time. I said, I'm looking for something new, I'm looking for a new challenge. And she said, I know somebody who has a franchise, and I think you'd be great to run this franchise in the north, or in Yorkshire, in fact, it was. And I said, do you know what? I'm open to ideas at the moment. And I followed it through, and I ended up buying this particular franchise, which was a networking franchise. And I realized that I'd been networking all my life, but it wasn't particularly called networking then. It was going to conferences, going to seminars, going to workshops, meeting people, which today we regard as networking. But I just did it because I enjoyed it. Because
Yeah.
I said before, I like meeting people, and I'm nosy and I'm curious. So this networking franchise was actually quite interesting, and it was specifically for business women. And I had never worked with women particularly before. I'd worked with a lot of men, and I was often one of the few women in a boardroom, particularly working internationally. And so this was completely new, and I found it fascinating. I found the whole concept of how women do business so different from, particularly at that time, the way men did business. And I was very interested. And that I didn't, after 5 years, I gave up that franchise because I felt I'd done 5 years, and I was going to do something different with what I'd learned. So that different with what I learned resulted in starting up a new business called She Business. specifically to support more women startups, and also for those women who have a business, to help them grow that business, develop it, and for those that are able to scale those businesses. So that's what I do now. We have a business startup program, but I do a lot of business coaching. And actually, the business coaching isn't exclusively for women, but a lot of the businesses I coach are women owned. So supporting women in business is like massive. That's the big thing that I do at the moment.
Oh, just something in my heart just expanded. I'm having like this well, it's just a feeling in hearing what you did, the networking, and then the she business, and how what a gift you are to those women. I can feel it, and I think anybody listening and watching can feel it as well. I just want to ask, what did you see the difference in the way that women do business compared to men?
So a lot of the men that I've worked with have a very distinct proposition around their business, and a very distinct ambition as to where they will take it. They don't always know how to get there, but it's more linear, I think. And I think there's been a lot of research around that men's careers generally are more linear. The women that I work with, more recently, as I've said, I've seen more and more social impact, social purpose businesses that have come from women. But also, I think it's very much around I have an idea for a business, for a product or a service, and I want to build it around my lifestyle, and often that's around family or caring. Because as we know, even in the 21st century, even where we are right now, sitting here and having this conversation, women still do the main areas of domesticity, and that has improved over the years, no question, but it still exists. So a lot of the women I work with want to wrap their business around their responsibilities now. It doesn't mean that in 5 years that won't change, but right now that's what they want to do. So there can be limitations around that, or you could argue it's just doing business in a different way. It's equally valid, it's just different. So yeah, I mean, interestingly, I was talking to a business in Sweden yesterday, an amazing business that is just developing its health tech, femtech business, and it's supporting women through pregnancy with an app, developing an app so that women have a whole lot of tools to support them in what is actually quite an anxious time. You know, having a baby is scary, like really scary, if you haven't done it before, that is. And if you don't perhaps know many people who are pregnant at that particular moment. So I think that's an example of a business that could have a huge social as well as health, particularly around mental health, impact. But it's a business that's gradually growing, gradually looking at investment, particularly with angel investment at the start, because it is very much at the start. And it's come through the experience of the women who've set this up and around their lives. And I
It's
think
interesting how we work with lived experiences, don't we? I think women take our cues of what am I going to do, and then if we just look at the struggles we've had, then we know that other people have had them, and we can create something that comes from our lived experiences. Do you find that that's common, that women do that more than men?
I think more than men, most definitely But I think it may just be that women are more open about it, because I have had men that I've coached over the last 18 months or so, two in particular, who have had imposter syndrome, for example, which is something we hear a lot about. But often it's women who say, "Oh, I've got imposter, I feel as though I've got imposter syndrome. I feel like I don't really, I shouldn't really be at the table," all of that. You don't hear men say that as often, but it doesn't mean they don't feel it. I think women are often more willing to be open about this and to share, particularly with one another, and get peer support as a result. So there's a lot of good stuff around sharing and having peers that you can share with.
I agree. That openness and that recognizing that you're not alone with your thoughts and your feelings kind of liberate you from the shame, the blame, the entrapment of those feelings that we spend a lot of time trying to disguise, that really just gets in the way of us being in our divine flow, I think.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
what do you think women are doing um, that is supporting men's growth? So what is it, the way that women are showing up, that in some way can or does or has the potential to support men being less linear, I'm guessing?
So it's this is fascinating, actually, because I 2 years ago I set up a second business called Go International, and the purpose of that business is to support particularly small and medium-sized businesses, to look at new markets, international markets, and go international. And it's a hand-holding process, through helping build strategies and business planning and all of that stuff. And I have two fellow directors who are male, and it has been fascinating, actually, because they, I think, are products of a change that is a very recognizable change in how some men, at least, operate in business. And this is very much, I mean, both of them really see the way that women do business as being different, but being extremely positive. For example, everybody knows that women are fantastic at multitasking. Everybody knows that. We just often just do it naturally. And men often are not as good. I'm vastly generalizing now, but I think we've all seen that in the workplace. But the guys I'm working with at the moment, and some other people, some other guys that we're working with, who are our partners, are very much products, I guess, of seeing and understanding this way of multitasking, and being very receptive and sharing more about their personal lives. And what I mean is, I've got to pick up my child at 3 o'clock, so I can only be in this meeting till 2:30, as an example. Now, a few years ago, you would rarely, I'm not saying you'd never see it, but you'd rarely see that. And I think that is actually quite interesting, and it's definitely a change.
I think men's roles in life are being um, altered slightly, and I think it's our generation of men. I'm putting out us in the same kind of category here. That so I'm in my 50s, and I think that my age group of men are the first men to
Yes.
have women that are um being more ambitious in an independent way. And there's this whole new way of um connecting with men and women has changed. You know, in our day, if you want to meet if you would meet your husband or your boyfriend in the pub because you just ended up chatting to them, it'll be really easy. And whereas now there's a quite a uh, it's very, very difficult now, but with it is all the etiquette that's very different now. So there's so many different things like who pays the bill and who chooses where you go and who rings first and meeting up somewhere safe and all those things that are now dynamics within the male-female relationship. And so I find that I feel like men are finding a new relationship with themselves as well as women that it's playing out at work as well. Like, do I hold the door open or not?
Yes.
Do
Yes.
I offer to get the bill or do I, what I think they're having to over guess and over filter and edit what they're going to say compared to the things that we used to say before that
Yes.
didn't have meaning. And
Yes.
now everything has meaning. And I think women are leading that to some extent. I think men are they're like having to catch up and think, I don't know right from wrong here. I don't want to get it wrong. But 10 years ago, this was okay. And now it's not. I feel like they're having to, because women are changing the way things are done, men are having to adapt around it. And I'm not saying women are right and men are wrong. I'm just saying that there's this new dance that is happening with our guys at our age for the first time. Lads that are growing up now, they won't know hunter-gatherer intuition like our men know. Does that make sense?
Yes, I know what you're saying, and I think that there is a change, and I think you're right. I think it is this generation. You mentioned the 50s and the younger generation of men in the workplace. I think that is different. Not totally, but I think there is some difference. I think Me Too made a massive difference in terms of how men feel in relation to the things like, I'll give an example, where my office is, there is quite a small meeting room, almost like you probably have a one-on-one in there, that kind of little room. And one of the people that's in the building, not working with me, but works in the office building, said at one point, I don't want to use that room with a woman because it's a very small room and I don't feel comfortable really. I just don't. And that made me think that's actually really quite interesting, isn't it? He actually felt he could say that. And I could see it's a small room. I could see why he might feel, oh, this could be uncomfortable. But so I do think Me Too had a fundamental shift, but I do think to some degree there is a bit of a backlash now with the all that's been going on in the sort of malescape world, through the internet and through various sort of male-centered websites, let's say. But on a day-to-day level with people that you kind of work with, I definitely think, certainly in my area of work, there is a change. And I think a recognition that we still want to see more women start up in business. Yes, there was a mushroom, and particularly over the COVID period, that's now gone down a bit. We all know that investment is much more focused around male businesses, far less focused on giving investment to female businesses at the right moment. Hopefully that's going to change.
There's a stat.
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I haven't got it in front of me. But
It's either 5% or 0.5.
yes, it's gone down actually. Again, I'm honestly, I don't want to give a stat if I don't actually.
We'll find it
know it
and
and make sure it's
I'll
robust.
magically put it on the screen now.
It's good. I think that's
Yeah,
good. I think
in the
that's good.
edit.
But I mean, I think the point is that we want to see more from an purely economic perspective, see more women not just set up a business, but grow that business. And as I said, potentially scale that business if it's a business that's scalable. And you know, that would make a massive, massive increase to the wealth of the UK. There's no question of it.
And by the sounds of things, to well-being, because you know, you
Yes,
were saying that the more socially, what was the term you used, that women
social
tend to
purpose, social
social
purpose, social
purpose.
impact.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
that we'll all benefit from it, because the more socially purpose driven means that that women want to make an impact that makes a
yes,
difference.
yes,
It's not for they want significance. The significance will come in notoriety for making the difference, but not for. Although there's plenty of women that want notoriety, but the world that we're in, there are people that are working very, very, very hard in their purpose being fulfilled through their product, providing they can get the investment, the coaching, the mentoring that they get. I was going
yes,
to ask a question. Oh, I was going to just pick up on what you were saying about men in the, you know, being really considerate to spaces that they're in. I was with I had a little bit of cancer. It was a little bit. And I had some surgeries. And my consultant would never see me in the room as I was taking my clothes off by myself. You'd always have to go and get a nurse. And I kept saying, "Oh, no, I'm okay. I don't mind. I mean, you're going to be looking everywhere anyway. What? There's going to be, I don't mind. I trust you." And actually, him getting the nurse wasn't it, well, it is for my comfort, but it's to protect him, ultimately, to protect him, because I could gone from trusting him to having a bad day one day and say and misremembering, because I don't,
yes,
you know, I'm not going to say people make stuff up. I think that our mind distorts and deletes our experiences depending on the mood we're in any given moment. I'm going to sneeze. And so excuse me.
bless you, bless you.
And so I really feel for men. I I I've got a huge respect for what men do for us, and how there are some men out there that are making the good men's life difficult, because of precautions they're having to take, considerations. Yeah. And it's not necessarily just the men, is it? But so I digress a little bit, because I think that that must be an ongoing fear men live with, that we don't, that's in our blind spot, that they're constantly, not constantly, but their nervous system has got a different saber-toothed tiger to look out for now. And it's more that, am I putting myself in situations that there's an unintended consequence that's going to come from
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
that I have got no
yes,
intention of
yes,
doing anything but come from the highest good, and they're having to,
yes,
I think they're vulnerable in that space.
yeah. I think that's, I mean, potentially, yes,
Mm,
yes. I mean, there is, I mean, and that is absolutely post Me Too.
yes, yep.
That
And
was the
and
fundamental shift.
so in the perspective of working with women, and I do as well, and I love it. The women I work with, I feel like we lift the car bonnet up and we both peer in and say, "Did you know? Look at how that thinking's playing out." And, "Oh, I didn't know I was thinking like that." And I just said that off the top of my head, and that we do a lot of work on our thoughts, our thinking, the thoughts that we believe, and self-trust, massive amounts on self-trust. Now, and that's not just exclusive to women. What do you find is in women's either consciousness of what holds them back the most in terms of thinking and attitude or beliefs, and also what's in their blind spot from
Yeah.
your experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes it can be thinking too small. And one of the things I do, because I'm not, although I have trained as a coach, and although obviously life and real life issues affect your life naturally, which includes work life or business life, I wouldn't pretend to be a life coach in the sense, in the sort of understood sense of what a life coach would do. I am purely about business. So what I tend to see is people starting up with a passion, not always knowing how to translate that into a commercial business. Because interestingly enough, in time gone by, if you set up a social purpose business, it tended to be as a social enterprise. Or sometimes people set up a charity. But nowadays, you can have a business with a social purpose that makes money. Whether you choose to have it as the kind of business where you just reinvest that money in the business, or you set it up where you take, profit from as soon as you can, or even a salary, and why not? From the early days, if the money's in the coffers. But a lot of the people I work with perhaps don't always see where they can take their product or service. And that's the beauty. I'm going to do a bit of a promo now. That's the beauty of working with somebody else like
Yes.
me, who can say, but you know what? Let's look at the competition for this, because I think it's minimal. So let's look at how you can really maximize this incredible opportunity in the market. And I mean, I've been there with all sorts of things where you limit yourself simply because you're in it. Whatever it is, you're in it, so you don't always see the bigger picture. And somebody else can nudge you in the ribs and say, you know what, you actually have a great opportunity with this app or device or whatever it is. And so I think that is something that's really important. But is it the same for men? Maybe to a degree, but as I say, I think women major on this. The other thing that women major on is price point, because
Yeah.
I often see women who are charging far too little for a product or service in the marketplace. And a lot of women have this yen to be nice, and don't really like talking about money an awful lot, don't feel that they want to charge an awful lot because they want you to like what they do. Somebody I've been working with for some time, I met her on Monday. She's been in business for 10 years. She's got a great business, and she just said to me, oh, I'm charging, it's a service more or less the same as I was 10 years ago. And I said, that's absolutely crazy. Think about the market, how things have changed. Well, will people still pay? They will. Coffee now costs £4.50 in some places, doesn't it? Coffee and a bun is probably 10 quid.
I know.
One day in the week, if you do it multiple times, or in a month, you're spending a lot. So people want your product or service, they will pay for it.
Absolutely. And I just want to go back one and then come back to that one as well, which is what I've noticed that people do is they do have the vision to start off with of big, this is what I'm going to do. Then it scares them. It looks like too much. They take advice from well-meaning people that say, look, start off small. Then if you fail, so everything is designed around failing and being disappointed. So let's set the vision so that if you fail, that you won't be too disappointed. I hear this such a lot. Even when I work with sales teams or even individuals on a within a group and I get them to start setting a goal, I have them set it in a very specific way that they feel like they've lived it, and then the mind has experienced it. But what happens when they're in the beginning part of talking about what their goal is, I see them in that moment shrink it out loud. I actually see and hear somebody say, oh, well, I could do this. Oh, no, but. And some of the reasons why they shrink it is because, what will people think of me? I don't want to be disappointed. I need to be realistic because there's the SMART goals:
Yeah.
strategic, measurable,
Yes.
achievable, realistic, and time. Well, I'm all right with the time bit. And I do believe there needs to be a strategy. But once we've done the dreaming, I feel like we absolutely have to tap into that dream, because it's in that dream that our mind does have it all worked out. It wouldn't show us if it wasn't possible. But you saying not thinking too small is the one of my number one reasons why people don't achieve the goals, because it's too small.
It's too small.
And it's
Yeah.
not exciting, and it's lost its purpose because they've shrunk it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's certainly my experience. And the other, well, we'll go on to positives in a moment, but the other negative is just not putting enough in the budget for marketing and for going out and selling or getting people to sell your product or service. But if you can't sell it because you haven't marketed it properly, you haven't got business. And so many businesses that I work with, they've got hardly anything in the marketing budget. They think it's something they'll do later. Oh, I'll put some money in the budget for that later, when actually it's a fundamental from the start. So I always think that that's interesting. However great a product you have or service, it's going to fail at the first hurdle if you can't sell it.
And do you recommend like test and measuring sales, as in, I mean, I know you'll always measure, but when I mean early adopters, test and measuring and then getting feedback and refining.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, the cost might be different in 6 months when you've actually done all that, but the cost of the product, I mean. But if you don't do your marketing, if you don't have a proper plan in place and follow it through, because the world has shifted so much. I mean, you think of TikTok. How many years has TikTok been around? Hardly any. Yes, again, that's been a game changer for a lot of businesses, actually. But how we actually market our businesses is crucial, absolutely crucial. I was reading today about Samantha Cameron's business, Sefin, I think it's called, isn't it? Her clothing line that she set up, and it's gone. It's no more because she couldn't make it work. And one of the analysts was saying it's so. I mean, fashion is cutthroat. There's so much incredible competition within fashion, and it is all about constant PR, constant marketing, constant social media presence. So you're talking to that person who is going to buy your product, the avatar for your products all the time. And if you don't do that successfully, however many gorgeous garments you've got, you ain't going to sell them.
And it's I coached, I won't name, she was very well connected to Meghan Markle, and one of her products flew off the shelves because Meghan Markle wore her short shirt at the tennis, the husband's shirt.
Not the
And
white shirt.
yes,
The white shirt. Yes, I
yes,
remember that. It's iconic. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And it just, so that, what's that called when somebody wears your product? That itself is worth a fortune. If you can get
It's
some,
like an influencer.
that's it. That's what it
Yes.
is. An
She acted
influencer.
as an influencer.
Yeah. And that made all the difference to her sales. And that's another area of marketing that certainly wasn't around when I did sales, when I
No,
worked for a hospital
no,
20, 30,
no,
25 years ago. It's a new thing. It's getting and so many influencers now get paid to talk about products.
absolutely, absolutely.
Thousands.
And as well as big influencers, which nobody can afford, if you're a startup business, there are micro influencers that you might be able to afford. So all these things need to be in your budget from the very, very start. So it is very, very different from how it used to be.
And price. Women
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
I do find women are very over considerate about price and find that they don't want to fall under the greedy category.
yes, I think that's so true. But I think I put that down to a lack of confidence in yourself, but we're still in the product. Because as I said before, if you've got a good product or service, people will buy it. If it's the right thing, they always say, everybody always says if you start up a business, it's got to, the first question some smart business advisor like me will ask them is, well, what pain is it that you're getting rid of? The classic thing was you set up a business because there's a gap in the market because somebody else isn't doing it, or somebody else is doing it, but you can do it better.
Yeah.
But it's to alleviate some want or need, basically. And therefore, if you've got a great product that you can do better than somebody else, or you're inventing a product that doesn't exist, which will have a great impact, then it comes at a cost. And it's a market cost. You've got to find out what that market cost is. Obviously, that goes without saying, but it comes at a cost.
And be aligned with it. Sorry, say that again.
Because otherwise it's a charity.
Yes, exactly. And it's not, you can't sustainably run your business that you want to make that serve that purpose with. There's quite a bit of psychology around pricing. And I remember when I first learned hypnosis, and I was working at the time. I learned hypnosis because I was fascinated in it. And then when I set up my own business, I was going to do all things that linked to the mind. So it was my foundation, really. And I thought, I will, some quick wins. I'll help people stop smoking. So I asked my mother-in-law at the time to ring round other hypnotherapists and see what they were charging. And she's a primary school teacher. So she rang the local hypnotherapist, and they were all charging 50 quid for stop smoking. She said, so you probably need to be 50 quid. I said, I'll be £250. She said, you won't get any business. I said, I will be reassuringly expensive, but also they will get the outcome. Because there's two things. I have a system where they will stop smoking, but also they will bring their own active, focused attention, so they don't do the things that they used to habitually do. Like, so many people come to stop smoking, but still leave the cigarettes by the back door, flick the kettle on, grab the cigarettes, go outside, and so that they would. So when you pay £250, which is probably a month's worth of cigarettes, you don't leave those. You go around and you find everything and you get rid of everything because you have committed. And it's in that commitment where they get the result. And so that's just a tiny example of, I was 5 times more expensive, and I don't know anybody that didn't stop smoking when I did that. And therefore, with my other services, there's a belief in your credibility when you charge a certain price that brings, as a coachee or whoever's in front of you, they bring a part of themselves that has a heightened sense of wanting to get the difference, wanting to make the outcome. So it's actually part of their journey. But I wouldn't charge it if I wasn't worth every single penny. But if I was 50 quid an hour, then people will think, well, it's all right. I'll do it next week.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know,
No, that's
there's a big,
interesting.
yeah,
Yes.
there's
And
a
did it
saying.
work? Did it work? That's
Oh
the key
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've got a client at the moment where I've been coaching her for about 15 years. When she has a project, we coach intensely. If something's changing in her life, and I'm her person. Um, Not that long ago, she had a coaching session, and I thought, I've not done any coaching in that, and there's not really been. So I said, I'm not charging you for this. Oh no, I want to pay for your time, Lisa. I said, but I don't charge you for my time. I charge you for. So it's give and take. It's give and take. I think. I know the times when I've thought this has just been a chat. I'm all right with that. And there are times when we did a 4-hour session last week, getting her ready for something, and we worked hard in those 4 hours. So it's that be confident about your value, and you have to know
Yeah.
that yourself,
Yeah.
don't you? You have to know what your own value is before you can then start pricing anything else. You were going to say, and the positives about women in business that they
Yes.
have.
Yes. So what I have seen, particularly over the last 2 years, is women who are just so passionate, and the passion for their product or service is infectious, and it does really influence you. You know, if they've got a great product and they're passionate about it, what could be better?
Yeah.
And I don't know whether, again, because a number are in the femtech, that this is just the businesses I've been involved with. Obviously, I've only been involved in a certain number, not all businesses, but a number of them are in femtech and health tech. And because they are so passionate, it makes you feel energized. So there is an energy, but also I think there is. I mentioned before about cautious in terms of ambition and pricing. There is a place in business for being cautious, but it's got to be the right place and at the right time. So I think that can be a real positive, and you have to use it as a positive. That caution. Women are, again, research has proven that women can be risk averse. I know so many women in business who've put their own money into the business and haven't thought to look at angel investors, just because they don't want to take risks, and also they don't necessarily want to have somebody else who maybe ultimately takes a stake in the business, or ultimately could take that business away from them. Not necessarily angel investors, but once you get into the wider investment journey. So I think that often women are very clear-sighted at the beginning, and they look at what they think they can achieve. It's up to me to work with them to see whether we can either say, yeah, this is right, let's kind of keep to this, or okay, no, let's look at a growth path for this and how that would work. But again, I saw it yesterday with this Swedish company. The passion is just incredible, off the scale.
Yeah,
You have to be passionate about business, the business that you're in. Otherwise, there's no point.
yeah, it was just another job.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're all running from those. I've written
Yes.
2 things down. One is intuition. I'm just going to say the word, and you can talk. I don't
Yeah.
want to create a question that restricts what you have to say about women and men's intuition. But yeah, I'm just going to say the word.
So, I mean, there's no question that you see it all around you. Women have intuition. Men have possibly some, but you don't always see it. Sometimes they hide it. They've got it. I remember years ago when I was working in an office and I walked in and I could immediately tell. You know, you walk in an office and you can just feel something, but you don't actually know what. But your intuition tells you something has happened before you got there. I was leading this project actually at the time, and I said to the person who was like my deputy, effectively he was, and I said to him, "What's happened? Something weird has happened in the office." And he said, "Really? I hadn't noticed anything."
Everyone looks normal to me. I've said, "Are you all right?" They've said, yes.
Actually, somebody'd fallen out. You know, there'd been a whole thing. But you hadn't noticed any of it. But there you go. That was just that one example. But yes, I think a lot of women lead by intuition. I lead and have always led by intuition. I sometimes think it's my greatest gift. That feel in your tummy, that in your gut is often the right one. I think it just leads you to the right place sometimes. If your gut tells you something, it's usually right. That is how I've always run my life.
I agree. I think it's then the brain's job to work out what I'm going with
What?
this.
What?
So
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
it?
But
And then
how?
how am I
How,
yeah.
actually?
Well,
How?
what is it I'm
Yeah.
going to do, and how am I going to do it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But the gut is
The
telling you, go in that direction. It's that.
yes,
Or it's not that. It could be equally, it's not that.
yeah,
Don't go in that direction. It could be the other side of that coin.
yeah. And I think, and just going back to, I wonder if this is a question I've got. I wonder if women read people often better than men do, because maybe men are about, okay, what needs to be done, let's get on with it, what's the problem that he's solving, let me fix something, let's like men are permanently walking around with a hammer and spanner, and women are reading a situation first. And it reminds me of when I led a group. I was coaching a construction company, and I said, as part of building their culture, should we do the Yorkshire Three Peaks? You know, as you do, just 26 miles over 3 mountains. Should we do it as an entire company together? And we were going up the second mountain, and I'd tasked the leaders, the actual leaders of the company, that they were going to run, lead, coach, mentor, and facilitate each leg of the 3 peaks. And so, what are the qualities of mentoring, and how are you going to demonstrate it here on this, and what do you need to be looking out for? How do you need to be getting the team on board? And, it's all very well mentoring when everything's going well, but what about when everything's strained? And that's when we default, and that's when we most need to be mentored. And I remember saying to the finance director, how's everybody doing? So we just said, how are you all doing? And everybody said, yeah, all right, all right. And I said to him, is that true? And he went, yeah, they've all said it's all right. And I said, what are the other ways that we could know how people are doing? He went, well, by their answer. And I said, and what else? He said, I don't know what you're getting at. I said, well, just have a little look at Dave. His head's down. He's not speaking. He's on his own. Oh, yeah. What do you think that means? Well, maybe I'll walk with him. Good idea. Maybe I'll walk alongside him for a bit. It's not about doing anything. So it's that kind of, I'm not saying that men don't read situations, but I do think they're absolutely magicians at getting stuff done, fixing things, problem solving. And I think that the other great dynamic that blends well with that as well is that reading the collective, isn't it?
Yeah.
So my last
Yeah.
question then is, if you've got time for it, is the value, do people buy people, or do they just buy idea? Do they just buy into ideas?
I think people in general terms buy from people that they engage with for whatever reason. And I think this is why, going back to marketing and sales, it's so important to build a personal profile today as well as a business profile. And I know we all know that, but often we forget to do it, or we find it quite hard to do. Again, it's putting yourself center stage, isn't it? And sometimes sharing when you don't want to share. But people are very intrigued by people and products. And you've only got to think of the massive explosion of beauty products on the market. I don't know if you've I'm sure you'll have come across one called P. Louise, which is the market is mainly teenagers, and it's Manchester based. It's fantastic. It's fabulous stuff, but the whole thing is based on the experience that she's called Paige Louise, P. Louise has built. It's the whole thing is the experience of the products, and the audience is a younger audience, and that profile that she's built is how she's built the business. She's built the business around that, and it's very, very interesting. But yeah, I think it's a difficult one, and it's not something people are always comfortable with.
I always find when I'm looking for working with somebody, or that I will look on their website and watch videos of them. If I like them, then I'll take it further. If I
Yes,
don't feel something, I
you
don't care.
probably won't.
I probably won't. I don't care how good what they're selling is. I don't care if it's the best. I don't care if it's the cheapest. If I don't feel it from that not everybody though is this orientated. It's not. I think the different uh, behavior profiles will have different priorities of what they connect with, and my behavior profile connects with the idea and the person, but the idea is not greater than the person, and the person's not greater than the idea. But if I don't love the person, so if I'm booking a holiday, I want to know, and I'm like going on a trek, who else is going and what they like, because
Yeah,
that's my experience with
absolutely.
them.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is interesting. It's so different product or service by product or service. So if you think of going back to kind of beauty, Charlotte Tilbury
Yes,
has built. Well, it's called Charlotte Tilbury, isn't it? Her business is massive. She has a very distinct look, which she hasn't changed over the years. And you either engage with her and how she is and that look, in
darling,
which case you love the products.
darling.
Uh, if you don't, if that's not your thing, you won't, and you're not going to buy them. Victoria Beckham is similar. She's a bit more Marmite, I think. You know,
She's
you'll either
aloof.
love her clothes and makeup. She's
Yeah,
aloof.
she's
Yeah,
aloof.
yeah,
I get the feeling with Victoria Beckham that I don't actually know who she is. And I don't know Charlotte Tilbury any better, but I do buy Charlotte Tilbury stuff.
yeah. Me too.
Um,
Me too.
I think we associate with people's imperfections, don't we? Rather than their perfections. Like we
Yes,
instantly fall in love with somebody when we hear when they fell down. And then suddenly they're real, they're relatable. And yet that's the part of ourselves that we think we're ashamed of, we must mask over, isn't it?
yes, yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
So, in closing, then, what one tip would you give anybody when they are pitching their business to investors?
Okay, I think the key thing is I if you go before an investor, the investor has to believe in you in some ways above the product or service, because if they don't have absolute confidence that you can deliver this well, they're not going to invest in you. So going back to passion and energy and enthusiasm, I think those are the key things. Obviously, you've got to have a great business plan. Obviously, you've got to have a great product that's going to have the capacity to deliver what you say it's going to deliver. But it's all about you initially as the founder of the business, and your credibility and your credentials, because they'll do due diligence and a lot of it. So your credibility and energy and passion are the crucial things, as well
I,
as your vision and
I,
ambition.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that because I think many people, when pitching, go into being mechanical and they abandon themselves instead of bring themselves through it. So it's a process, isn't it? You bring your personality through what you're pitching. Your personality isn't bigger than what you're pitching, but you bring it through rather than just be mechanical.
Yes.
Is that a fair summary?
Yes. I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
I can't thank you
Yeah.
enough, Paula. What a great
Yeah.
conversation. I feel
Fabulous conversation.
like we've not even touched the surface. So if you're up for an episode 2, I would love that. And then we can pick a subject and
Let's have a natter about it.
have a natter about it. A bit like I just threw intuition and you just, yes. So thank you so much. We'll see you for
Pleasure.
Paula Grizzard part 2 coming up in the future. But for now, thank you so much, lovely. That was brilliant.
Pleasure. Thank you.